resonating. I share you, Mama. Absolutely. 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 Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Your energy is heavy. Absolutely. Your energy is heavy.
Founder of Supreme Hell Liberty Life Insurance. This building right here. This was the insurance company.
Wow.
This is where it was founded. You got the Major Robert H. Lawrence Jr. First black astronaut. A distant relative, I would think. This is a story. In World War I, the United States was at war against Germany, against the country they called the Axis, right? And the allied United States was France, but the United States would not allow black soldiers to fight under the flag and in the uniform of the United States Army. So what they did was that the French said, we'll let them fight under our flag. And so the United States, the black African American soldiers, they went to World War I and they fought against the Germans and they helped the allies, the French, the British, the United States, the other allied countries to defeat the Germans. And the French were gracious enough, in terms of their own mentality, to have this monument erected to honor those soldiers who came to help them maintain their freedom and their liberty, even though the soldiers who helped them do that didn't have freedom and liberty in the United States. And so these are names of different black soldiers who died and who came from this area. See, because a lot of times they would get they would take an area of a city or an area of the like a small area, and they would recruit soldiers and they would keep them together when they sent them places. So they all knew each other. They all came from the same neighborhoods and stuff like that. And so all of these images, look at them. You see the black women here. You come over here and look at the front. And you saw all of that stuff that was downtown, all the white settlers and all this stuff. But you got this a brother with a shield, a sword, and an eagle in front of him. You know, presenting him in a place of honor. And the one at the top is a black soldier, you know, decked out in all of the armaments and guns and uniform. Another point I want to make about this is that even though in World War I, they would not allow black soldiers to fight for United States, France allowed them to fight. And one of the consequences of those brothers learning how to shoot guns and getting the experience of killing other human beings was that they learned how to defend themselves. And so you had a lot of incidents where black people who used to be afraid to fight back started to fight back against the races down south. And they got the courage to move from the south to the north in order to create a better life for themselves, right? And so that experience of learning how to shoot guns, how to handle, how to having the experience of actually having taken the life of another human being, even though they may sound harsh to some people, but it's like that's experience that allows you to know how to defend yourself. You know, and you get over that fear, you get over that hesitancy. You know, and so that's why they did not want black soldiers to fight. And one of the points I wanted to make was that they tried to say that black soldiers were scared to fight, even though they had fought in the Revolutionary War, both for the colonies and against the colonies with the British Army. More black soldiers fought for the British than fought for the colonies, right? Because they wanted to be free of the colonies. They didn't want to. So you got to read people like Gerald Horne, the historian, to break all of that type of stuff down. They fought in all of these wars, from the Revolutionary to the Civil War. In the Civil War, 200,000 black soldiers fought in that war and killed white people in order to become free. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free them. They freed themselves by killing the soldiers of the Confederacy so that they can become liberated. They liberated themselves. They didn't get liberation from no Abraham Lincoln or no piece of paper or none of that stuff. They liberated themselves. And on Juneteenth, that's when so many thousands of black soldiers went down to Texas. It was black soldiers. They had a white commander, but it was black soldiers who marched down to Texas and liberated those Africans who the Texans refused to release, and they liberated them. Not no piece of paper. It was black people with guns who did this liberation. Okay? The statue commemorates the movement of black people. It's called the Great Migration, which is commonly said to have occurred around 1918, after the or around the time of the First World War, World War I. And so when you look at this statue right here, what do you see? A lot of times people look at this and they're wondering what they're looking at. But what you're looking at, those are soles of shoes. So he's made his suit, and what he's standing on are the soles of shoes of people walking, mimicking or symbolizing people moving or walking. They didn't walk, of course they didn't walk here from the south, but they moved here. And so so the soles of the shoes commemorate the movement. And he's holding in his hand a suitcase. As you can see, the suitcase is slightly ajar, slightly open. He's got rope or string securing the suitcase because he's a poorer person, a person with meager means who's trying to come to another place to create a better life. And then around here, you see this surrounded by these objects here, right? So these objects, these are steamer trunks. So these are the trunks that people used to have when they would move, and they would put all their belongings in these trunks. Okay? And so that's the gist of it. That's the gist of what this statue represents, what this monument represents. The movement of black people across the United States, from the south to the north. They went to Chicago, they went to Cleveland, they went to Detroit, they went to Pittsburgh, they went to New York, they went to St. Louis, they went to a lot of different cities that were north of the Mason-Dixon line. And they came here looking to build a better life, to escape Jim Crow, okay? And they created communities. And this area where we are in Chicago called Bronzeville, this was the only area where they were able to come to in order to establish this new life that they were seeking, right? And so you had doctors, lawyers, postal workers, laborers, people working in the steel mill, people working in the stockyards, people working in the small factories, the small manufacturing facilities that were in these communities back in those days, So that's what was happening in Chicago. And so you had local newspapers like the Chicago Defender, the Chicago Bee. They would publish articles, and they would talk about, they would try to encourage people, they would try to encourage black people from the South to come up from the South to Chicago. You had other papers in other cities, like you had the Pittsburgh Courier in Pittsburgh. They would send articles. You had the Amsterdam News in Harlem, and so on and so forth, encouraging black people to move from the South to the North. Now, how did they encourage them? They encouraged them by sending the papers to the South. The black men who were the porters on the train. They worked for the Pullman. They were Pullman porters. So Pullman train cars, kind of a luxury type of a train car, where people would ride trains and sort of be in a high-end environment, soft seat, comfortable seats, so on and so forth. Those train cars was built in Chicago, and the porters were black. And they took it upon themselves to take these papers from Pittsburgh, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, so on and so forth, to the South with articles that encouraged black people to move from the South to the North, to the cities, to escape Jim Crow, to deliver news to them, and so on and so forth, right? And so you have the forces of the change in the country that was caused by World War I, and black men learning how to arm themselves and defend themselves militarily, along with becoming conscious of the fact that they could move to someplace else. And in the cities like Chicago, they had organizations that welcomed the people, that welcomed the immigrants. These was black immigrants immigrating from the South to the northern cities. And they had organizations that welcomed them, to help them to make the transition from the rural lifestyle into the urban lifestyle. So if you was living on a farm, you didn't really know how to live in the urban area. So you had to have somebody to help you. So they have committees of people and organizations that help these people make these transitions. That's when we were all looking out for each other. We were all together. We was organizing ourselves. We was pooling our resources. We were dealing with political organizations together, social organizations, cultural organizations, religious and spiritual organizations together. And so this statue is sort of commemorating all of that. And so you have to really know the history of all of these things to really understand it.
Ashe.
Ashe.